Hi everybody, it's Laura. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. Today I have a layout that I made using the Shimmerz Paints August Color Kitz collection. The August kit had a really cool 70s groovy vibe, so I was able to scrapbook a couple of pictures that had that specific theme. So this video is going to be on the shorter side. However, creating the layout was not on the shorter side because I did a lot of stitching. And even though stitching is very time consuming, I definitely think it's worth it. I love stitching and I love this beautiful piece of paper. And I love the way stitching along the edges of each of these rays of sunlight really showed the shape, the squiggly shape of each of the rays. So I started off by attaching a piece of white cardstock to the back of this piece of cardstock. Not that it isn't sturdy. These Shimmerz papers are actually quite sturdy, but stitching can really put a lot of pressure on a piece of paper. So I wanted to reinforce it. So I added a piece of white cardstock and I used a glue stick to attach the papers together, because if I had used ATG adhesive, it would have left a little bit of like a gummy residue on my needle when I put the needle through the adhesive. So I find that a glue stick is probably the best choice in this case. So I'll show you the results of my stitched background in a little while. Right now I'm going to be coloring in a number of these images on this sheet. It's a whole sheet full of a whole bunch of coordinated images. I pick out a couple of them to use on this layout. Now for this layout, I really wanted that sun background to be the star. So I'm not going to add as many embellishments as I usually do, but I really wanted to include the mushrooms and some of the flowers that were on this sheet. So I'm coloring in the mushrooms with one of the shimmers. This shimmer is called Mint to Be. And I'm going to use a few other colors to color in the mushrooms and the flowers. I use another Shimmerz called Fire and Ice. I also use a Creameez called Pink Champagne and a Coloringz called Oh Say Can You See. So this color that I'm using right now, that one is called Fire and Ice. Oh Say Can You See is a really pretty blue color, and the Pink Champagne is a pink color, and that's the color that I'm using now. For the first layout that I made this month, I used some photos that were taken at a 70s themed festival called the Flower Power Festival. And so I just had to use this kit for that. I thought that the papers and embellishments matched perfectly. But I also had another photo of my older daughter holding up a troll. So I thought this is also the perfect kit for that particular photo. But while I was creating this layout, I was away at a crop, so I didn't have the photo with me, so I won't be adding that until the very end of the video. I knew how big the photo was going to be, so I was able to cut out a white mat to go around it, and then I also cut out a piece of purple cardstock that would match the other colors on the layout. And the photo measures about 3 by 4 inches, and I printed it out on my Canon Selfie. I use the option to print 2 photos on one sheet of photo paper, and so I had other photos that I printed out on the same scale, so I was able to figure out how big to make the mat. And even though I saw the photo on my phone and knew which one I was going to use, I really lucked out the way the colors in the photo go really, really well with the colors that are in this collection. The pinkish red color on the troll and the color of the troll's clothes, which was green, both matched so well with the colors that are in this page. So I was really happy with that when I got home and I printed it. So I am going to be using this sentiment. I just put it off to the right. It says Stay Groovy, going around in a circle around a flower. That's going to be my title. So I wanted to cut out a little mat for it. The first one I cut out was a little bit too big, but I thought that this one worked really well. And I used my Creative Memories circle cutter to cut that out. I love using those tools. I feel like I would love to have some more of these circle cutters in different sizes. And now I'm going to start working on my clusters. So I have my title in the center. I'm going to put my photo in the lower left corner. And now I'm using both the pieces from the ephemera pack and the pieces that I fussy cut out after I painted them to embellish the page. I'm going to have a small cluster in the upper right-hand corner and then my photo cluster in the lower left-hand corner. And I'm just going to have those 2 clusters on the page. So because I do really like to stitch on my pages, I have been collecting embroidery thread in different colors over the years. So I have a number of different colors. So I chose 5 different colors that I thought matched well to the collection. I have an orange, a red, a purple, a pink, and a turquoisey kind of blue. And I just use a simple back stitch to stitch on the page, and I didn't go all the way to the edge. I didn't want to run the risk of the stitch pulling through along the edge of the paper, but those sun rays are very long, so I don't think that it mattered that I went a little bit, probably about a 1/4 of an inch in from the edge. So as I'm making the clusters, I'm using a little bit of fun foam to give a little bit of height to a couple of the embellishments on the page. I popped up that purple flower on the bottom cluster, and now I'm adding some foam to the back of the word Groovy, which I guess that could be the title too, although I do really like the sentiment "Stay Groovy" on that center area of the sun, so I guess either one could be the title. And I play around with the elements for a while. At first I had those mushrooms up at the top, but I end up moving them to the bottom. I also had one of the dots from the kit. That's the star that's right above the word Groovy. That was in the cluster at the top too. I also end up moving that to the bottom cluster. And I love the way all the embellishments around the photo, or where the photo is going to be, are 70s themed. We have a peace sign, we have a rainbow with some flowers on it and some other flowers, and then we have the little mushrooms. We also had this purple butterfly, and I wanted to make sure that ended up on the page. I really liked that butterfly. And then at the top, I have the flower with the face on it. I'm going to end up switching that out for a different flower with a face on it. And then I'm going to add some more embellishments up there in a little while, one of them being this butterfly. I put some foam on the back of the butterfly's wings so that the wings will pop up a little bit. Well, I always like to have a little bit of variation in the materials that I use on the page. So I have a lot of paper. I also have the stitching. And then this set of stickers was included in the kit. These are some puffy stickers, and these go along so well with everything else on the page too. So I found that there were a number of smiley faces, and I wanted to include a lot of the smiley faces. So I first put one of them on top of one of the flowers, but then I changed my mind. I decided I wanted this blue smiley face in the center of the sun. There were also a lot of stars on the sticker sheet, and I thought that these would be great to embellish the rays in the background. Some of the stars are included inside of a circle, and others are just the star. So I'm scattering those around the rays. I don't put one on every single ray, but by the end I have quite a few of them just to add a little something to the background. I don't want it to be too embellished, but I also don't want it to be too plain. Right now I have 2 little flowers right on top of where the photo is going to go. So since I added the stars to the background, I decided I didn't need 2 embellishments in the background that were maybe not the same size, but similar in size. So you're going to see that later on I'm going to take those flowers and incorporate them into the photo cluster. Like I said, I didn't want the 2 different embellishments competing with each other, particularly since they're around the same size. So since I keep taking embellishments from that top cluster and adding them to the bottom cluster, I had to find something to put at the top. So I picked out this little 3-flower sticker, and I added that next to the smiley face. And then I added a pink smiley face to that purple flower that's underneath the photo. And then this is where I switch out the flower that was on the top for this blue flower. And then I put a yellow smiley face in the center of the blue flower. I wanted a couple of additional small elements on the page. There's a lot of elements in that photo cluster that are very similar in size. So I saw that there were some little flowers on this sentiment, and I decided to fussy cut those out. I could still use that sentiment, but I wanted to use those little flowers for this layout. So here I'm fussy cutting all of them out. So there are some flowers that have some white petals and also some flowers that have some red petals. And I think that I had planned to use most of the flowers in the photo cluster, but I ended up putting quite a few of them in the top cluster because it was the same issue up there. I had a lot of elements that were around the same size, and I needed something that was a little bit smaller. And I really think that having elements of different sizes in a cluster is really key to having them come together. I have tried making clusters that have all the same size elements, like for example, a whole bunch of flowers that are the same size. And they just don't look the same as having a big flower and a small flower and then a tiny flower. Something about that combination just looks so much better. So I'm always trying to look for little elements and big elements and medium elements to put together in clusters. And then going along with that same idea, I also think it's a good idea to have clusters that are different sizes on your page. That also adds some interest, in my opinion. And then finally, on the idea of clusters, I think that nothing can substitute just playing around with them, trying the elements in different places and seeing where you like things, because you can sometimes move one little thing on a cluster and it could change the whole look of it. So those are my strategies for adding clusters to my pages. So I was, as I said, away at a crop. I did not have my enamel dots with me, so I got lucky that there were some dots on the resale table that were similar colors to this layout. So I have some yellow, blue, and light pink dots that I thought went well with the page, and I scattered those around the flowers. I mainly use them as centers for my flowers. And I almost always add dots or jewels or pearls to my pages, but I didn't want to bring my big bulky container that had all my enamel dots and jewels in it. And I was planning on buying some when I got there, but they weren't available. So I got lucky that they were on that table. So switching around some of those stars was the last touch. And now the layout is complete here. Just a couple of close-ups. So this is the August kit. It's still available in the Shimmerz shop. I absolutely love the 70s vibe that this kit has. And then the September kit has a Southwestern vibe to it. So I'm creating some layouts with that right now, and I'm looking forward to sharing those with you really soon. When you place an order with Shimmerz Paints, use my name in the comments and you'll receive a free gift. And all the links are in the description box as always. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.